Welcome, Taurus, to your in-depth astrology overview and zodiac forecast for April 2026 for the ascendant, the sun, or the moon. Going to share with you first the big themes of the month, then on screen your event chart, unpack that. That's the illustration right at the start of April, but always provides an influential backdrop. I'll then go through each of the influences frame by frame to give you a clear picture of what you can expect in terms of energy, work, finance, and relationships. I'm astrologer Patrick Arundell. A very warm welcome. If you've yet to subscribe to my channel, please do so now to help it to continue to thrive. April is a month, Taurus, that has four distinct sections, and they are very different in some ways. You start this month with a lot of bright energy in the part of your chart that sees you connect to others, perhaps socially, perhaps through collaborations and networking. But as the month goes on, there is a delicate energy that's developing that is, to be honest, much more psychological. But then on the 20th, the sun moves into your sign. You have your glorious new beginning, but it is challenged by the power broker of the zodiac, Pluto. What's the implication? And then we have the fourth section of the month as Venus, your ruler, bursts out of your sign into your section of everyday money, self-worth, and values, but to be joined by the electric vibe of Uranus. So the last week can really be very, very interesting indeed. So on the screen now is your event chart. As ever, we need to be mindful of the sun and the moon, but also your ruling planet. So let's just look at that ruling planet because it is in your sign. It joined up with you just at the end of March. And Venus in Taurus in the first house is a great chance for you to reimagine your personal identity in some kind of way. Now, if you're a dedicated follower of fashion, you may not feel that you want to change your clothes too much, but perhaps it would be time to have a nice haircut or pamper yourself a little bit. But don't be surprised if you're single, if you draw attention to you over this month. But also the sun is in the sign of Aries, but has moved into the second decan, which is subruled by the sun itself. So the sun is enriched there, but that 12th house is about review. It can be about rest, it can be meditative, it can be about retreats. And you have the healer, Neptune, and also the more resistant Saturn, along with Chiron in that 12th house. So the energy in Pisces is that much more social, interactive vibe, and they can be good for you this month. However, we do have, as the month begins, Pluto right at the top of the chart still. Now, Pluto is the power broker of the zodiac, as I mentioned, but as Venus moves forwards through week one, it comes into a square with Pluto. Now, if you are a creative, a maker, the chances are you're going to be very productive at the start of this month. But there may be someone you encounter who doesn't encourage you perhaps as much as they could do. And one of the things I think you're going to become more conscious of this month, unfortunately, is who's for you and who isn't. And some of the people who aren't for you are going to be a surprise. But if you are wanting to make progress professionally, just be aware that some of the things that you may want to do that are more to do with expression of your individuality, that might not resonate with someone you encounter. And just finally, the moon. The moon starts off in the fifth house, which can be very affectionate and bubbly, but it is coming into an immediate opposition with Neptune. And I think for all of us, that's an aspect that can make us very sensitive indeed. But I just want to share about Mercury and Mars because Mercury forges a quite stunning angle to Jupiter. Now, Mercury can be about merchandising, marketing. It is, of course, the intermediary, the messenger, but it can also be about precision. Now, it doesn't really prosper in a practical way in Pisces. However, It's out of the retrograde. It doesn't come out of the shadow until the 9th of this month. But that link with Jupiter suggests someone you're connecting to really likes what you've got to say, unlike this very powerful person who may not openly show their dissent. Just be aware of that. But there may be someone else that you can be really bright and breezy with, and the connection is excellent, and you can be discussing something that's very, very exciting. Also, Mars is moving through the 3rd to the 9th into a sextile with Uranus. Now, Uranus has really been pushing you the last 7 years to redefine your individual approach to situations. And it could be for some Taurus that that reaches a high point from the 3rd to the 9th. And you may feel such a buzz if you're strutting your stuff in your uniquely authentic way, perhaps in a different way to how you would have done 7 years ago, because not that you're afraid of change. I think that's untrue. It's more you have an appreciation of what brings stability. And that appreciation is very strong. And Uranus has been pushing you to at times step outside that appreciation and do different things. And that could reach a high point from the 3rd to the 9th in a very exciting way. But then we got an overlay which begins on the 2nd with the moon moving forwards out of Virgo into Libra, the sign of balance, equilibrium, and communication, in an opposition, obviously, first with Neptune, then Saturn, and then with the Sun. So we have the full moon. So, really, the very start of this month can emphasize where you're very conscientious, the 6th house, you take care with the details, but there's someone around you, it may be at work, who isn't very upfront, but they don't tell you. So the 12th house in traditional astrology was known as being secret enemies. It's really important to understand the 12th house has many positive characteristics. It can be, for example, where we embrace therapeutic approaches such as natural medicine, anything to do with being in nature, rest, peace, reflection, meditation, spa days, pampering sessions, all very 12th house in a very constructive way. But unfortunately, because Saturn can be an edgy and cold influence, just watch out. As much as these vibrant links are possible at the start of the month, there may be someone else that you're not quite conscious of who doesn't have your best interests at heart. I don't want to be fearful. I really don't like it. But this is a significant full moon, which asks you to understand that however dedicated and precise you are, someone may be criticizing you, but not to your face. The other way that that full moon can play out, Taurus, is that if you are a very practical person, but you don't tend to enjoy too much looking at your vulnerabilities, that full moon and the fact that Saturn and Neptune are now in your 12th house, Saturn for 2 years, Neptune for the long term, slowly but surely they're going to ask you to do it. Now, if you're someone, by contrast, who's really up for personal development, trying to grow and evolve, having counseling, you're embracing your vulnerabilities, you're not going to feel that full moon or even the energy of Neptune and Saturn in such a challenging way. So the 6th house is about the practical dimension, but it can also be our physical body. So if you are feeling weary just by keeping it all together, whether it is at work, the kids, whatever, and you feel drained, the way to feed your energy is going to be from some rest and recuperation. But that's coming right on the back of these very bubbly energies. So it's a bit of a, if you like, a cliffhanger and a almost quite quick switch of energy and vibe. But prepare yourself for it because Mars then joins up in that 12th house on the 9th, followed by Mercury on the 15th. Mars is going to meet Neptune and Saturn, then Mercury, Neptune, and Saturn. So those sensitive energies are not going to be avoidable. Mars in the 12th house is intriguing. In the 11th house, as it has been, it's great because it enables us to be ourselves, but also connect with people where we help one another. It's not so egotistical, Mars, in the 11th. as it can be in the 1st, the 5th, the 10th. But in the 12th, what Mars can do, because it is, of course, about action and it can be about impatience, if there are sensitive issues or energies within you that you're not so conscious of, they could start getting triggered. And that can at times make you feel a bit sad, maybe a bit tearful, maybe even quite feisty. And it can just come from nowhere. But just know that will only happen if there are unprocessed feelings. It may relate to an injustice from your past. It could be an accident you had, maybe a separate separation, even someone dear to you that you lost. But Mars in the 12th house is quite testing. However, the opportunity is to engage with that part of that most of us find a bit tricky. The things that we worry about, the meaning of life, anything to do with our fears. But if we look it straight in the eye, you will embrace it and learn and grow with it in a marvelous way. Just one thing, Mercury moving into the 12th does suggest that you might want to step back from even people that you're keen on. But if there are some fair weather friends, that collective is going to show them up. Now, then the sun with the new moon, which occurs on the 17th, is conjunct Chiron. They actually come into the exact conjunction on the 16th. But it's an intriguing one because Chiron in Aries is very much about identity. I love Chiron. Chiron, I think, can be a superpower. And Chiron in the 12th house, since around about February 2019, there may have been quite a few times, Taurus, when people have told you their life story. And it may have happened on a night out with your friends, and then someone may have opened up about some challenges they've had. And your compassion and understanding has been something that's really helped a lot of people, I feel. But at the same time, you may not have always felt that other people have been so attuned to your vulnerabilities. So that's a new moon that gives you a chance to look at that. And really, along with the energy of Mars, particularly, just try to integrate. We all have the physical, the emotional, the spiritual. We integrate it all together, which is much more of an Eastern concept rather than the Western concept, where it's all up in our heads. If you can integrate that, you're going to gain a lot through that core of the month. That brings us to the 20th. Now, the sun returning to your sign is really, really lovely because what it does is moves you more into the moment. And that moment gives you the chance to think, whoa, yeah, that's been quite intense this previous couple of weeks, but I've learned so much more about who I can really rely on upon, but also about how I can rely upon myself. And it's good to grow and good to release. It's also good to rest. It's also good to heal. All those concepts are brilliant around the 12th house. But the sun is much more about a new beginning. But that sun is going to clash with Pluto within about 5 days. So the latter part of this month could show up a situation where your desire to do what you want to do, which can be very strong, will come into conflict with someone else who wants you to do it a different way. It may be right down to control. Now, maybe with a partner, it could be with a boss, it could be with a customer or a client. But just be aware there could be a bit of a power battle. However, Venus, your ruler in your sign, through its more Libran energies, asks you where needed to use your charm this month, which can be plentiful. But then with Venus moving just after the sun moves, Venus moves into your second house. And do you remember I said at the start of this month that Mercury, the planet very much to do with marketing, Jupiter with opportunity, trade, they link so brilliantly at the start of the month. You could get your financial reward as the month draws to a close, and it could be better than you think. So, a conversation you have at the start of the month could come through for you brilliantly as the month closes. And then Uranus moves into Gemini for the long term. For all of us, it's going to be lots of different ways of communicating, traveling. Things will speed up even more. Is that possible? But I think what you can gain is that you've been very intimately attached to Uranus for the last 7 years. So you are the sign that has had the most recent experience, including this month. So what Uranus in Gemini is asking you to do is keep going with the progressive and different things you've tried, together with the things you've kept solid, because you understand that stability and security are very valuable. And being open to different ways of doing things can also enhance your ability to earn money in different ways, or to view life and develop your values in different ways too. So I'm going to recap those 4 areas for you of relationships, finance, energy, and work. But just to say, if you've yet to watch your Saturn 29-year cycle deep dive video, that's on the screen now. Please sign up for your daily written horoscope fired to your device each morning. Get your celestial pit stop with your drink in the morning. Please see the link below. If you'd like to work with me directly, please see my testimonials below. Now, if you'd like to use this form of astrology to understand your personal life journey in greater detail, there's 50% off my charts at the moment. Please apply Astro 26 or Draco 26 at the checkout below. Now, to summarize, as far as energy is concerned, I do think you're going to be very sensitive this month. And I think if you're doing a bit too much, pushing yourself a little too hard, it is very important to find some moments of rest. But the real energy will improve by embracing sensitivity. So the things that we think can be a vulnerability or a weakness can be your strength. When it comes to your professional situation, Pluto, right at the top of your chart, suggests that there's still enormous potential for you to go for. The Sun moving into your sign on the 20th suggests you may have to be very single-minded about a goal or ambition you have, but it doesn't mean to say you should back down. And when it comes to those alliances, as far as Mercury and Mars are concerned at the start of the month, the good ones can truly thrive. Know that. When it comes to a relationship matter, if a relationship isn't going so well, the 12th house can be a challenge because it can be about endings. And we just have to be very realistic about that. And if you're feeling frustrated as Mars arrives and meets with Neptune and Saturn, particularly in week 2, that can cause quite a lot of challenges. So it may be that some very frank discussions are needed to air grievances or things that have been kept out of sight. And that can be a great way to both improve energy, but also to improve a relationship just through being truly authentic about some tender matters. You may not want to hurt someone's feelings, but by actually releasing that, it gives you both the chance to actually move forwards. It is possible you could think about someone from your past, but remember, Venus is in your sign for much of the month, and that could see, if you're single, a new admirer heading your way, which is really exciting for sure. Have a great month, Taurus. Thank you so much for joining me. All the best. Take care and goodbye.